today's lesson is one that I think is really important, and that is that story is everything. And I'm going to say it again because I think it's so crucial, but it's story is everything. And what do I mean by that? Well, essentially, our brains are just these electrified blobs taking in trillions of data points every day. Sights, sounds, tastes, smells. And as it synthesizes all that information, how it makes sense of it is through a narrative. What we did that day, what we're going to do, what we did in the past, all those kind of fun things are like sorted and turned into a functional narrative so that we can process it. So it's a really powerful tool once you understand that, we're taking in this information, we're turning it into a story that we're telling ourselves with ourselves at the center of it, and that's how we're seeing the world, right? That's how it all kind of combines to make sense. And once you understand that, it helps with a couple things. One, it helps you understand why we love stories so much. So, why we are always on Netflix, why we're reading news articles about people, why we love to learn about celebrities, why we read books. It's because once we kind of like invest in other stories, there's this like nice empathetic boundary that is broken. And we learn more about them, about us, and it helps us feel less alone in these like electrified blobs in our brain locked apart. So one, that's why we love stories so much. Two, it's how we best communicate to other people. How we tell stories to others is really how we connect, whether it's a good friend who we rehash memories that we had together, whether it's, family who we have this shared history that we sort of tell every time we get together, or if it's a boring corporate environment where, how many times have we heard, use your data to tell a story? And what that really means is stories are how we communicate to ourselves. So obviously it's going to be the best way to communicate to someone else, is to put it in a story, make connections, and then help people process it that way. And third, the final thing I think that understanding that story is so important helps with is empathy. Once you understand that people are just processing information and what they pay attention to, what they highlight, where their attention is focused is how they build that narrative. Once you understand that, it kind of helps us better jump into their skin and just understand, your story isn't my story. What information we're seeing, what we're processing, what we're paying attention to is different. So your story is going to be different than mine, right? And once you kind of take that perspective and then share that or try to understand where someone's coming from and share their story, it really helps build connections between you. So knowing that story is how we communicate and see the world is really valuable. And I hope that gives you some perspective on it. Some creative exercises we're going to do is really based on that perspective taking and how we can build better narratives, stronger narratives, more empathetic narratives through story. I also want to highlight that a lot of this information comes from amazing books and literature and research that I've been reading in the past several years. So those are linked and highlighted below. So make sure to check those out too as the foundational and primary resource of this information. Story is everything. And I'll just say it again, fourth time's a charm, story is everything. So today's creative exercise is actually to write from the perspective of a villain in your life. So I want you to take 10 to 15 minutes and just write first person, like I did this, as the villain in your life. It can be, a coworker you're competitive with, someone you just don't like, maybe a family member you have some tension with. But some important things: one, don't actually make them a villain, like Stanley Whiplash, mustache twirling. But try to look at the Venn diagram of you and them and the overlap where you can find connection, where you can write from them actually like a deep perspective. So for instance, if it's a family member that you don't get along with, maybe like the points in the family where you do agree with or you do connect to them. If it's a coworker, maybe even though you don't like them, maybe the like goals or ambition, the different traits that you might share. So right in that space. This is one that I'm not going to share what I'm going to do because I just don't just in case someone realizes who it's about. I don't want that. But I have someone in my life that I don't get along with, but we do have a shared perspective in terms of like where we're from and upbringing. So that's where I'm going to narrow in. So that's where I'm going to write from there. And I'm not going to share once again because just in case there's someone who knows who that is. But yes, today is perspective taking. So I want you to write from the narrative of a villain in your life, 10 to 15 minutes, write from the I did this perspective, and try to focus on that overlap, something you connect with them with, even if you don't agree with them. And hopefully this will build maybe a little empathy for them and help you kind of explore maybe what their experience is, what their story is a little more. So today's creative activity is to do a life timeline. So what you're gonna do is pick 5 major events from your life. And then if you have time, I recommend getting some colored pencils, construction paper, or markers and actually drawing those 5 major events. If you don't have a lot of time, you can just write them down and then a quick line about why they're important. So 5 major events, and then actually go and do that and then come back to this video. So take a brief break and then come back for the final part of it to talk about what you can do with this timeline. All right, if you've taken a break and come back, one of the cool things about this activity is to see where your priorities are. And it's not judgmental, it's just kind of to see, as you narrate your own life, what are the most important things. Is it relationships? Is it family? Is it work? A good example is when I did this the first time in a corporate environment, I had absolutely zero work items on my timeline. It was all family, adventure, travel. So my boss kind of called that out and like, oh, you're not really into work, huh? I was like, oh, I guess not. So what's really cool about this exercise is you can kind of see what's important to you. And then that can help you focus your priorities in the present or kind of maybe make a plan of what to do in the past. But it's a cool creative activity to kind of see what's important to you.